Soulcast Media live event. If everybody can see me and can hear me all right, give me a thumbs up or an emoji on your end. I just want to make sure all the tech is working beautifully. Can you believe this? We have over 200 of you here right now. And this is the beauty of doing an event like this. It is such a joy for me to chat with you all, to teach you communication skills. And for all of you who are dialing in from truly all over the world. How amazing this. You can probably see the chat function right now. You all are writing in where you're dialing in from. We have folks from all over the world. South Africa, here in the States, Mexico, Kenya, Jordan, Sweden. Oh my goodness, isn't this amazing? Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. So for those who don't know, my name is Jessica Chen and I'm actually dialing here in from California. It's just before noon. Yep, I'm seeing all the emojis come in. So I'm so happy to hear that all the tech is working. Sometimes when you are doing this, you just never know in the virtual world. Either way, I'm very glad that you are all here and welcome to this event. We're going to be talking about public speaking communication skills. For those who don't know, my name is Jessica Chen, and this is something that I love talking about. Partly because communications, public speaking, it was something that I used to struggle with as well. So if you feel like right now you're like, ugh, presentations, public speaking, it gets me so nervous. Well, you're at the right place because I'm going to be sharing with you all my favorite tips. So let's get started. What you will see here on your screen right now is some text. Big shout out to Prezi. Anytime I do presentations, and by the way, I do speaking engagements every single week, I'm always thinking about how can I enhance my presentation? And you know how a lot of us have been in presentations where like the speaker is a small box on the bottom of the screen. I love using this software system because it just makes it so much more interactive. So like I mentioned, you were all here because we're going to be talking about presentation skills. But for those who aren't too familiar with who I am and why am I talking about public speaking? Well, let me share a bit about who I am so you know where I'm coming from. So recently, and when I say recently, just last week, LinkedIn named me a top voice in presentation skills. And it's such a huge honor to be recognized as a top voice in this skill because, like I hinted earlier, public speaking, presentation was not something that I was, naturally born with. You know how there's some people out there where you're like, wow, they are a natural communicator. Well, when I started working, that was not me at all. Part of it is cultural, I think, part of it is personality. So for me, I consider myself pretty shy and timid. That's just kind of who I am. And culturally, I mean, obviously I'm Asian, and even though I grew up in the US, culturally, I wasn't really taught the communication skills to advocate for yourself, right? Like, how do you talk about your work? How do you get people on board with your ideas? Perhaps this is similar to you. Maybe you were taught, maybe at home or at school, or just even the people around you, they kind of were like, you know what? You got to have this head down mentality. The funny thing is, prior to starting my own company, which is Soulcast Media, which is what I do today, I used to be on TV. So when I was on TV, as you can imagine, forced. You are forced to learn how to be a better communicator immediately because if you cannot speak well, especially on TV, well, no one's going to pay attention. So after about 10 years in news, in fact, the last year I was working in news, I won an Emmy Award. And, that was the culmination for me of saying, I need to teach folks this. There's so much that I learned on TV, presenting, interviewing people, that these are skills that I need to teach it to folks. And, that's why we are all here today. Over 250 of you are dialed in from all over the world because I think you are all ready. You are all ready to be like, okay, I'm ready to level up my presentation skills. And here's the thing, you are here, and so many other people are here as well. And where everybody feels in terms of their presentation skills, it varies. Maybe for you, you're like, you know what? I'm pretty good. I just want to get some extra golden nuggets. That's what I call it. Or maybe right now you're thinking, oh, I'm just not good. So, wherever you are right now, I want to say you're at the right place because all the tips I'm going to be sharing with you today is to help enhance that. So, this is a little bit about me, the work that I'm doing. And I'm so proud to say that I've taught over 2 million people now how to improve their communication skills. I mean, how amazing is that? When I started my company Soulcast Media 4 years ago, I never thought I would be able to impact this many people. And I always say there's tons of people teaching communications. And I think the reason why so many people have you know, gratefully learned from me is because I understand that struggle, right? There's so many people who out there who are like, just be more confident, just learn the skills. But here's the thing, and I'm going to talk about this later. Presentation is actually a mindset. Being confident, feeling comfortable, speaking clearly, it actually all starts up here. And I feel like if we cannot talk about that, we will never become better because even though you may know the technical skills, which I will also talk about today, if you aren't starting from up here, you're going to still be using all those filler words. I'm happy to also say that I do have a book coming out next year. I can't share too much about it yet, but for those who've been following me, and by the way, if you don't follow me already here on LinkedIn, please go to my LinkedIn page, click the follow button, because I'm going to be sharing all the news and updates on this coming book. And aside from LinkedIn, by the way, if you don't follow me on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, just type in my name and make sure to follow me because, hey, communications is what I love doing, and I'm gonna continue doing this. All right, so let's get started. So, when we talk about public speaking skills, I love starting off by getting your opinion. So, what I'm going to ask you all to do right now is open the chat function. I'm pretty sure many of you have the chat function open because I'm seeing all the comments continuously roll through. But here's the thing, I want you to open the chat function because right here on the screen, I'm going to be asking you a series of questions. And these questions are to get you thinking, about where you are right now when it comes to your presentation skills. And I'm going to ask you 3 questions. And as you see this on your screen, I want you to type in your answer. Don't think too hard. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just, what is it for you? All right, you ready? Okay, here's the first one. Right now, how do you feel when you give a presentation? That's the question. If somebody on your team, your manager, is saying, hey, can you put together a presentation for the team next week? What's the first feeling that comes to mind? Open the chat function and type in that feeling that you get. What is it? And like I said, there's no right or wrong here. It's just how you feel, and it is okay. That's the thing. It's okay. I'm seeing a lot of different comments come in. I'm seeing a lot of nerves, a lot of anxiousness. I'm seeing confident, but I can improve. Absolutely. And that's the beauty of this event. Where we all are on the presentation confidence scale, it's different for all of us, and that's okay. Let's see. Anxious, excited. Lauren, you're saying, I feel great sometimes, then I feel nervous. I see you, Lauren. Oh, Laura, you're like, I feel sick. Excited, an opportunity to share my ideas. Unprepared and stumbly. Yes, a lot of anxious, nervous, full of energy. Ooh, sleepless nights. How many of us have felt that way, actually? I agree with you. When you know you have a big presentation the next day, maybe you're just laying in bed and you're just thinking about it and you can't sleep because you're like, gosh, I just want to get this over with, right? Okay, this is great. And I love seeing the variety of different feelings coming in. And what I love about this is it's just a place for you all to see you're not alone. All of us have feelings and different feelings when it comes to how do we feel. All right, here's my second question. You'll see it here pop up on your screen right now. Let's see here. You see it? How would you rate your public speaking skills right now from a scale of 1 to 10? And 1 is like, gosh, hate it, don't like it, I'm not good. And 10, you're like, no problem. Sign me up. You have a presentation you want me to do? No problem. So, right in the chat function right now, from a scale of 1 to 10, where do you fall right now? And by the way, if you're watching this and, sometimes with this tech stuff, it may seem like it will restart. If you see me restarting, just refresh your browser or your phone and it'll take you back because we're live right now. All right. So I'm seeing so many different numbers come in, and we are really getting a range. We have a lot of Mina -1. Oh my goodness. It's okay. We have an 8 from Sharon. We have 6 to 7. We have 5. Let's see, 4, 6, 8. This is amazing. It's a range, right? And this is what I've noticed because I teach presentation skills to teams at corporate companies. And I always find that sometimes that number, like the number you're thinking of right now, it changes depending on the environment. If you're talking to people who you're very comfortable with, maybe you are more of a 6, 7, 8. But if you're talking to a large group of people who maybe you don't really know that well, that number goes down to maybe a 2 or 3, right? And that's the thing. Environment plays a huge role as well. Okay, this is great. So let's go into the last question. And I'm loving all your comments and I'm seeing your names and I'm seeing all the numbers come in. Okay, so let's go into the third question, which is what you will see right now. This is a general one. How do you know when somebody is nervous? So, what is that really obvious sign when you're watching somebody else present and you're thinking, ooh, they are definitely nervous? What happens? What do you notice? What do you see? I mean, it could be also you too. You're like, I know I do this when I'm nervous. But, as an observer, because we watch people make presentations too, how can you tell that that person is not so comfortable? And I know sometimes you're like, what is that? But think about that and write it into the chat function. And many of you are saying it's that shaky voice. A lot of it is that voice. Marie, you're saying the person turns red. Oh gosh. Yeah. A lot of us have seen that where maybe they're thrown off guard. Maybe they lost their train of thought and suddenly their face turns red. Let's see. What else are we saying? We are seeing folks saying apologizing, a lot of apologizing where they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," right? What was I trying to say, right? Fidgeting, Camille, we see that. When people are nervous, sometimes they start scratching their arms, they start scratching their face. And that's the thing. I think the speaker doesn't realize that that's happening. Rapid eye movement, sweating. Lucy, drinking a lot of water. I have a water right here. But yeah, a person who's really nervous constantly is grabbing that water and sipping it, right? And I think a few times is okay. But if you do it too often, people are like, okay, let's just think about more of the engagement. Okay, first of all, the chat here is amazing. And I want to say every time I do this presentation and do this talk with teams and corporate companies, the number of people who are engaging is, to me, it shows that this is a topic that resonates with people. So I want to say you are in for a treat because we're going to be talking about a lot of things. And just hearing what you all are writing right now in the chat function, let's be real. Let's be real. Presentations and public speaking, it's tough. It's not easy. For many of us, it's considered the last thing on the planet that we would want to do. Because right now, you might be feeling nervous. I mean, chances are you wrote that in the chat. Or maybe you're thinking, ugh, I use a lot of filler words. When I speak, I have the ums and the ahs, and I want to get rid of it because it diminishes my executive presence. Or maybe right now you're like, I am more of that timid person. And I want to feel more confident and I want to be able to command the attention of people in the room. Or maybe right now you're thinking, I do try to speak when I present. I feel like I'm prepared, but why does it feel like people are always talking over me? By the way, if any of this resonates with you, put into the chat function, say yes, or throw up an emoji or something. If any of these, you're like, gosh, I have felt this way for sure. Or maybe when you have, and you're like, okay, I have the confidence to speak now. It's like nobody listens. No one acknowledges what you're saying and the amazing idea that you have. So here's the thing, whether it's nervous, filler words, timid, people speak over you, no one acknowledges you, or you feeling you're not that articulate, I'm here to say this is something that should not, and actually will not, hold you back. Because everything I'm going to share with you today is to get you knowing how to think about presentations so that you know what to say and how to say it. Because if you feel any of these things, it is going to hinder how you speak, how articulate you are, how clearly you can convey your message. You know, whenever I share with people this, a lot of people are like, yes, this is exactly how I feel. And trust me, and this is kind of my whole, the purpose of why I do what I do, which is teach communications, is because I think a lot of times we talk about how public speaking is hard, but we don't acknowledge this. This is really at the root of why a lot of us don't feel so confident. So let me share what I'm going to be talking about today. My hope is at the end of our talk, everybody here is going to walk away feeling like they can at least start to master presentation skills at work. You are all going to go from feeling, okay, I'm so nervous, I don't know what to say, I don't know how to carry myself, to feeling empowered. You're going to have more of that clarity at the end of, oh, this is what I have to do. This is what I have to say. You are going to speak moving forward so other people will actually hear the thoughts, the brilliant thoughts that you have. You are going to know exactly what to say. And ultimately, all of you who are feeling like you have that shaky voice, those filler words, you're not confident, you're going to feel confident. Because, like I said, presentation, it starts with having the right foundation. You might have heard, you might have listened to podcasts or people on YouTube or whatever teach and talk about presentation skills, and they're teaching the technical stuff. And I love that. But like I said, to really make sure that it becomes a habit of doing it right and being consistent, it really starts with getting into the right headspace. So you bet there's going to be so much I'm going to be sharing with you, which is why I want to very quickly share this with you. So I'm about to share with you all my tips. And you might have a pen or piece of paper ready to go to write down all the notes. Now, for those who've joined me on these Soulcast Media Lives, you know that I'm always sharing, I call them golden nuggets. And if you don't have the time to write down all the notes, we have what we call the VIP Communications Pass. And this is just to share with you that you don't have to rush and write down all the tips, because we will write it down for you and we will email it to you. If you already are in and have our VIP Communications Pass, you're going to get today's show notes. If this is the first time you are joining and you're like, I really want to remember everything, scan this QR code because it'll take you to our VIP Communications Pass, and that'll allow you to access all our notes from this event and all our future events coming up. And let me tell you, I usually don't do solo events like this. I usually have a guest come on. And let me tell you, we got great guests. Actually, last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, if you've heard of the book Radical Candor, very famous book. I had the author of Radical Candor, Kim Scott, come on, and we talked about communication. So Basically, what I'm saying is if you want to learn communications and you want the show notes because maybe you can't attend all our sessions or you don't have the time to write this down, well, grab our VIP communications pass because basically we do it for you. You can scan the QR code or you can go onto soulcastmedia.com/VIP and it'll take you to it because we do the work for you so you don't have to rush and write down all the notes. All right. Okay. So, with that, let's get started. And like I said, if there's anything that you've missed, here's a code. Actually, I'll just leave it down here for you. Okay. So, right now, you are about to make a presentation and you're thinking, okay, I'm not too thrilled about it, but I know I have to do it. And maybe the night before, you're thinking, please, please don't mess up. Please, please just make sure to do it well and at least get my thoughts across. For many of us, presentations, it's a scary thing. Getting up in front of our team, people who we even know because we work with, suddenly because we have to give a presentation, that nervousness just suddenly becomes almost uncontrollable. How many of us have felt that? We know the material, and that's the thing. Most of the time when we are giving a presentation, we actually know the stuff. But why is it that when we suddenly get in front of an audience, and let me tell you, it can be one, two, five, or 50 people, it's as if because people are looking at us, we suddenly don't know what to say. And this is where I want to start off our talk today sharing with you what I mean about getting into a presentation mindset. Because a presentation mindset is where it all has to start. So let me tell you, whether you are in a one on one meeting, like this picture here, or whether you are standing in front of a group of people, or maybe you're in a team meeting, this is how I want you to think about presentations. It is a conversation. You know how sometimes it is when we're talking to somebody and it's a one on one meeting, maybe we're not feeling so nervous. That feeling of you having that conversation with somebody in a sit down meeting, just like this, is the exact same approach I want you to take whenever you are about to talk to people in a crowd. Like I said, whether it is 5, 10, or 50 people, it is a conversation. So if there's anything that I want you to remember right now, it's this word conversation. Because sometimes I feel for many of us who get nervous, we overthink the situation. We feel like we have to act a certain way, we have to speak a certain way. And that's the problem. We are focusing on the wrong thing. It's thinking about how can I think of talking about what I know so it's engaging and it's conversational. That is the mindset. Because whether you are talking to 1 or 100 people, it's a conversation. If you are thinking about, okay, how do I typically engage with people who are friends and family, basically people you're comfortable with? I want you to think about it like that. Here's the thing. A lot of us, we get so focused on people's titles. I am speaking to the senior VP. I'm speaking to that senior executive. I'm speaking to X, Y, and Z. Because we think about their title and that's all we can focus on, because of course we want to make a good impression, we forget that at the end of the day, it's just a conversation. They're people too. So I want you to go in with this mindset of, wait a second, it's not the senior VP, it's Jennifer. It's not the CEO, it's Stacy. Or, oh, it's the senior manager. No, it's just Ben. Let me pause here because I really want this to sink in. This is the most important thing we can all do so we don't get nervous. It's not that we are speaking to somebody who is so high up. It's again a conversation, and we have to think about it as a conversation. Here's my favorite one. People are attracted to your voice. In the chat function earlier, I was, reading about how so many of you are like, oh, the voice, right? Our voice gets shaky. People are stuttering. Or I have to alter my voice a certain way for people to listen. Well, let me tell you, people want authenticity. People want people who are comfortable showing a bit of personality. A lot of times when we get nervous, we feel like we have to be a robot, right? We got to go from A to B to point B to point C, right? But I say, don't forget to have some variety in your tone. Smile a little bit, right? People are there to listen to you. And that's the thing, they're there to listen to you. So don't feel like you have to change yourself in any sort of way. If anything, it's just refining how you think about presentations and how you approach presentation. That is really what will get you to be noticed. So here's the thing. These 3 points, this mindset that I'm talking about and how it's so important, every single speaker who is a very confident speaker, we all think about this. We all have this exact same approach and exact same mentality. And now you do too. I basically shared with you this secret, and it's not rocket science, right? It's like, yeah, of course. So if you have the VIP pass or you have a notepad, these are the things that I want you to think about, because this is going to set the foundation of how I want you to think about all your presentations moving forward. It starts with having a mindset. Okay. So at this point, you're like thinking, all right, Jessica, I understand the mindset that I need to get into, but what do I actually say? Well, this is where I want to introduce to you the ABC checklist. By the way, as I'm going through this checklist, I want you to recognize that I am effectively doing a presentation right now. So I want you to also watch how I'm doing presentations. How am I talking? How am I presenting the information? How do I frame up the information before I present it to you? Let me share with you. My speaking and the way I think about presentations was not something that just came naturally. This is a skill. And I will tell you, the more you present, the more natural it'll be. It's hard to go from feeling confident from doing 0 presentations to suddenly being confident in talking to 100 people. We have to always challenge ourselves to practice and even raise our hands. We can tell our manager, hey, in next week's Monday meeting, can I just do a quick update with the team? That's effectively a presentation. And this is what I mean. Finding low stakes situations is the best way for you to practice your presentation skills. All right. Okay. What's the ABC checklist? So we talked about mindset, but let's talk about what you can say and how you can say it so you can really capture your audience's attention. And I call it having the ABC checklist because it makes it just very easy to remember. So, what is the ABC checklist? A is you have to capture your listeners' attention. That's the A, attention. Because if you cannot capture your listeners' attention in the beginning, well, the truth is it's going to be so much harder for them to pay attention to you, right? The B is be tailored in your messaging. So, communications is one of those things where even though you know the material, you know what you want to say, how you say it to one group is going to be a bit different to how you say it to another group. If you are a manager, for example, and you are talking about something with your team and you're sharing what you want your team to do, how you will talk about that to, let's say, senior executives is going to be different. Why? Because what they care about is different. So being tailored in your messaging is so incredibly important. C is having a clear structure. How many of us have been in meetings where the person is talking and you're like, oh my God, they're talking in circles? And you can tell when they're talking in circles, they're repeating themselves. And for you as a listener, you're thinking, wait, I'm having a hard time following their train of thought. Having a clear structure is the best way to get people to understand your logic in thinking. Okay, you have the ABC, right? You're thinking, okay, this is what I need to do. I'm going to share with you what each of these mean. What does it mean to capture the listener's attention? What does it mean to be tailored in your messaging? What does it mean to have and build that clear structure? All right, are you ready? So let's start with A. This is attention. And how do you capture the listener's attention? Well, here's the truth. The first few minutes are the most important. Because if you cannot gain and capture your audience's attention in the first few minutes, the chances of you gaining their attention back becomes so much harder. So, what does this mean and how do you do it? Let me share with you 3 things you need to think about. You have to ask yourself, okay, if I'm going to be putting together a presentation, I'm going to speak. How can I make sure I'm talking about what the listeners care about? What do they care about? Whatever it is they care about, you have to start off with that. It helps to even share, okay, I'm going to be giving the team an update, and this is what I want you all to learn or understand at the end. You saying that is a great way to capture their attention because now they know what to expect. And that goes into the third point. Setting people's expectations is how they can understand, okay, so the next 10 or 15 minutes, this is what Jessica is going to talk about. Sounds interesting. All right, I'm going to pay attention. So this means when you are capturing the listener's attention, you can say, what's the reason why we were all together here today? You're sitting in a room, you have folks who are there. Why are you all there? That's a great way to get people aligned so they know, okay, what Jessica's about to talk about is relevant. Relevant. That's the key word. You can also say, well, what I'm going to be talking about today is A, B, and C. Specifically, there are 3 things I'm going to be touching upon today. You see here on your screen, it's quotations because I'm trying to be as explicit as I can. And that's the thing with communications, right? You don't want to leave things up for interpretation unless that's your goal. Being a great communicator is letting people know exactly what you want them to know, and it's setting the expectation. So down here, you can say, well, my hope is at the end of my 10-minute talk, everybody here is going to have a clear understanding of where our team is right now on project A. Do you see that? I'm sharing with you the expectation, what you'll learn, and why you all should care. Here's a fun little reflection. I actually did this when I started chatting with you all today. When we jumped on this workshop, I shared with you that I'm going to be talking to you about how you can get into a clear mindset. I'm going to be sharing the ABC checklist with you. As you are all learning, I'm doing all these things. So effectively, you're seeing this in action right now. So, this is what I mean capturing your listener's attention. Finally, B. Oh, I need some water because, okay. So be tailored in your message. So being tailored in your message means, like I said earlier, what you say to one group of people is going to be different from how you talk to another group of people, even though the topic is the same. Why? Because what they care about is different. So you have to think about this. I'm talking to a group of senior executives, or I'm talking to people who I manage, or I'm talking to people who are maybe potential new clients. Different groups of people understand different things, meaning how you approach your messaging has to be tailored because you can't always think your communications is a one size fit all model. So here's a good general rule. If you're speaking to an audience who has generally a high level understanding of what's going on because they're more general, keep your message high level. But let's say you're talking to people who have more technical expertise. This is where it is okay to be more specific. You can use industry acronyms, right? Maybe like specific words or phrases that people, because they are also knee deep in this, they understand what you're saying. Because the worst thing you can do is you get super technical, deep into a topic, but the audience, they're not there yet. They're just trying to understand something conceptually. So for you, you have to think, who's my audience? What do they care about? And how can I tailor my approach? Because this is the truth. It's not about you or how much you know. It's always about them. It's always about the people you are speaking with. And here's the thing, it's always more strategic to prioritize engagement than saying everything that you know. Sometimes when we get very nervous, we just brain dump. That's what I call it. We brain dump everything that we know, either because we are nervous or because we feel like we have to tell people everything. But the most effective speakers know it's better to maintain engagement than to overload people with information. Because if you overload people with information, at the end, they're not going to be able to retain all of it, anyways. So you need to be very clear. What are the one or two points that I really want people to know? Think about that next time you're framing your presentation. Okay. The C is clear structure. So when it comes to having a clear structure, this means before you even put together your presentation, you have to be crystal clear on what am I saying in the beginning, the middle, and the end. So you can see it's having a clear structure and knowing how to start it off. How do you want to talk about things in the middle? And then how do you want to end it so it becomes very powerful? Because oftentimes, when you're thinking about putting together your presentation right now, you're thinking, okay, I know I want to say this, but then you feel kind of like overwhelmed, right? Of like, okay, but how do I and where do I say all this, right? So let me share with you, what does this mean? So think about you taking your listeners on a journey. It's kind of like a roller coaster, right? Who here likes roller coasters, by the way? It's thinking about that. So when you're thinking about taking your listeners on a journey, the beginning is where you have to start off with that unifying point, right? Remember how I talked about that earlier? You have to have a unifying point, a bold statement, something that can make the people go, "Oh, that's interesting." That's what you want them to feel, because your beginning is how and when you're going to capture their attention. Now, the middle is where you're going to go, all right, whatever big, bold statement I made to capture their attention, I have to back it up. This is where you unleash the data, the information, right? Any of these things for them to go, "Oh, I understand what Jessica is saying. This is the evidence to show why she said that statement." Your middle is effectively where you want to share examples. Now, I will say, The middle of your presentation is oftentimes when you will lose your audience because you're in the middle now. So, one of the best tips that I share with folks is try to quantify it, meaning break down your middle into a point one, a point two, and a point three, and say that because it's easy to lose your audience when they feel like, huh, wait, where am I, or what's Jessica saying? But if you say those words, point one, point two, point three, they can easily follow along. Finally, your ending. Your ending is where you want to loop it back. Whatever you said in the very beginning is where I want you to rehash that statement. Whatever bold claim you made in the beginning, I want you to repeat it at the end. This is how you can effectively create this full circle moment. Because that full circle moment is how people can go, wow, I actually understand. That is what she was saying. So, what you see here and everything that I'm sharing right now, this is how you want to approach your presentation. Even before you put pen to paper, right? Let's say you have a week to prepare your presentation. This is how I want you to divide your time. So, when you look at it this way, I feel presentations become a lot less overwhelming. It becomes less overwhelming because now you know, oh, okay, now that I can categorize it, this is how it fits in. Okay, here's a fun question for you all right now. I'm going to take a quick poll. Open the chat function because I want to get your answers to this. So I'm going to ask you one question and I want you to write down what do you think this answer is. Which element makes the biggest impact on communications? You have three options here. Is it body language? Is it tone of voice? Or is it the words that you say? Open the chat function and let us know, what do you think is the right answer when it comes to making a big impact? And when I say impact, I mean if you really want people to think of you as a better communicator, right? The ROI in communications. Is it body language and how you are acting? Or is it your tone of voice? Or is it the words that you are saying? I'm seeing a lot of you write tone of voice, body language. Some of you are saying it's the words that you say. It's so fascinating to see. And maybe right now you're thinking, I would say it's body language, or I would say it's tone of voice, or I would say it's words, the words that I say. And it's so great to see the variety of different perspectives. All right, so let me share with you what is really the one thing that makes the biggest impact when it comes to your communications. It is your body language. Your body language effectively controls people's perception of you. It shows whether you are confident and competent. It really does, because it's what people see. And here's the thing, we are all visual creatures, right? We are watching people, we are forming impressions of people, we are taking cues of people, forming that impression of them more than we know. And a lot of it has to do with body language. Now, let me say, for those of you who are thinking, no, but I really think it's tone of voice, you're actually not wrong. Tone of voice makes a huge impact on your presentation's ability and the impact it makes. It's almost 40% of it. Now, many of us have been in these presentations where people are speaking like this, monotoned, very monotone. Now, as a listener, how difficult is it for you to stay engaged? And remember how I said engagement is very important? This is why. So, because so much emphasis is put on body language and tone, This basically means words, what you say, well, it does matter, but actually not as much as you would think. But what does this mean? This means if you are super stressed about having filler words, don't stress about it because people will think and observe your abilities more through your body language and your tone. Because of this, I want to focus on talking about a bit of body language. And by the way, as I'm going through this, if there are any questions that you may have, because I've been sharing so many tips, throw it into the chat function because I'm going to try to do my best to try to answer as much as I can. And if I cannot, be sure to follow us on Soulcast Media because we do talk a lot about communications and we do try to answer your questions. So let me first talk about what you don't want to do. You don't want to do this swaying back and forth. When you sway back and forth when you're speaking, people are like, okay, this person is just very uncomfortable. We've all seen it. What you also want to avoid doing is having your hands glued to your side. You know, when your hands are glued to your side or you're fidgeting, I know many of you are thinking about fidgeting as an obvious sign that someone's nervous. You want to avoid doing that. Another one is where do you look? So a lot of times when people are nervous, they kind of look away. They don't want to look at the audience. Why? Because it's just a reminder that people are looking at them. But here's a really good tip. If you don't like looking at people because it reminds you that God, people are staring at you, you can just kind of look at the top of their head and it still gives the impression that, hey, you're there and you're okay. But this is the thing. You want to avoid feeling like, oh gosh, I'm not comfortable. You don't want to give that impression because it can diminish your speaking presence. So let's talk about really quickly, what do you want to do? Let's talk about using your hands. So, for those of you who have been watching me talk about presentation or you've seen my videos, you'll know that I use a lot of hand gestures. Hand gestures are a great way to build engagement because, like I said, if your hands are glued to your side, it shows that you are kind of stiff. If you are nervous, you also want to be mindful of your shoulders. Your shoulders are where people can tell that you're nervous. Another thing is using head movement because, again, a person who is so stiff and kind of stands like a robot, people can tell. So, have some variety in your head movement. You know, after our lesson here today, go back and watch this entire presentation again. Watch how I'm using all these body language movements when I present. Finally, smiling. Smiling is to me one of the best ways to show warmth. And trust me, people love it when they feel like their speaker exudes that warmth and competence. Those are the two things I want you to think of: warmth and competence, and smiling with your eyes, your cheeks rising up, right? That is honestly a very attractive quality, especially if you want people to pay attention to what you're saying. All right, gosh, we're nearing the end, and I cannot believe how quickly the time flew. For those of you who stayed on, I hope you all were able to be like, okay, I was able to learn some really good tips. So let's do a quick review of all the things I talked about today. We started by talking about mindset and remembering it's a conversation. Don't think about you talking to a senior executives and you getting super flustered with that. Think about it's a conversation. You're talking to family and your friends, right? It's that mentality. We also talked about content. We know about mindset, but what do we actually say? This is where we talked about the ABC checklist. You have to capture your audience's attention. You have to be tailored in your message, and you have to have a clear structure. Because we talked about body language and how it is so important, I shared with you some tips: head movement, shoulders, that authentic and genuine smile. Because ultimately, this is what people are looking at when they are watching you speak. So, I hope you all enjoyed this workshop. For those of you who have been following me for a while here on LinkedIn or on Instagram or other social media sites, you know that we host these events actually pretty often, every other week. And I want to share, if you loved this and you want our notes because you didn't get a chance to take down everything that I said, and we also, by the way, if you have a VIP communications pass, we get you exclusive access to even more content. So basically, if you are like, I really am ready to level up my communication skills and I don't know where to look, well, you're at the right place because communications is truly our expertise. And like I mentioned, being named a top voice in presentation skills, it just makes me feel so honored because I hope to show people that communications is a skill we can all learn individually and when we are communicating with teams if you're a manager. It's funny because I do speaking engagements almost every week. I'm talking to different teams, to different organizations to encourage them to prioritize communications. And it's funny because I get so many messages from people who feel like, maybe it's like how I present the information. It just is like, wow, I get it, right? And that's my hope, that I can make all this information easily approachable and digestible. And for me, how I talked about engagement, whenever I'm speaking and training and doing workshops, to me, engagement is the most important. Because if I was talking like this the whole time in a very monotone voice, how much of this would you be interested in the content? Probably not so much, right? So I just hope, me even doing this is to show you that presentation is a skill. It can be improved because, like I mentioned earlier, I was not a great communicator. This was absolutely something that I struggled with. And through practice, having the right mindset, knowing what to say and how to say it, oh gosh, it completely transformed. So, really quickly, if this was helpful, can you let us know in the chat function? Just let us know, like, what was your favorite tip that you've learned? I'm actually very curious to get your thoughts. What was your favorite tip? What's the one thing that you're going to take away? Because we look at all this and we just want to make sure, as we are crafting more of these communications workshops, that we tailor this to the things that you care about. By the way, I also want to say, one of the reasons why I do this is because when people think of who looks like a good communicator, who typically comes to mind? Somebody who can represent a company, somebody who can speak well. I've talked to many, many people, and a lot of times people don't say, is it a woman? Is it a person who's a minority? Oftentimes people who look like me, it's not what comes to mind. And so I hope to basically reshape people's perspective to share a person who can be a great communicator can look like me. I'm a woman, I'm a minority, I'm Asian, right? So I want to say it is so great to see you all. And it's so great to see all the different tips that you all enjoyed. I think a lot of you are saying it's a conversation, it's the ABC structure. So, whatever golden nuggets, that's what I'm calling it, whatever golden nuggets you walked away, I hope you found this session super helpful. And I want to let you know, we're going to have another one of these. So, if you want to attend, go down here and RSVP soulcastmedia.com/events. It'll get you notified of all our upcoming communication events. And if you're like, I want to attend them all, but I just don't have the time, if you get the VIP communications pass, we will email you the show notes to all our future events. So it's pretty darn awesome. So with that, I just want to say thank you all so much for being here. I hope you all enjoy the session. And again, if we're not already connected here on LinkedIn, please connect with me, send me a message. And hey, if you manage a team and you're like, I want this for my team, you can message me as well, and I'll have somebody on my team reach out and we can plan something just like this. So, with that, thank you all so much for being here. I hope you all enjoy the session. And then I look forward to staying in touch with you. And hopefully, you will all join our next session coming up. All right, everyone, take care. And I hope to see you all soon.